Okay, so over here we are with the new topic, that is an element and a compound, right? It is there on page number, this is basically your chapter number 3, and this is starting from page number 53 from your textbooks, all right? When we talk about elements and the compounds, first of all, we need to identify with the definitions of both of it separately, right? So the definition of elements is an element is a substance made from only one type of an atom. All right, there is no mixation in your elements, there are no combinations in your element. Your element is the only substance that becomes an element by adding nothing to it. It is a substance that is made by a single atom only. Okay. And when we talk about and when we talk about elements, we have enormous of elements in this world, right? An element is a substance which cannot be broken down into simpler substances by chemical reaction. That is another definition for it. It means that this is a type of a substance which will never lose its chemical properties even when something is added to it. Alright, even when you mix it with any other substance, it will not change its chemical properties. Its chemical property will remain constant, right? And also they are showing us few examples of elements as solid, liquid, and gases, all right? And all these states are made up with a single atom only. Okay, a single type of an atom. I'm not talking about quantity, but I'm talking about the type, right? Solids, liquids, or gases. So this becomes your atom. This is the definition of it. Now, when we talk about elements, elements are symbolized, right? Now, what do we mean by symbolizing something? Symbolizing means to shorten something, all right? In order to say the whole word completely, fully, we just minimize it, we just contract it in order to make a symbol out of it, right? Now, there are so many elements, and of all the elements, we have their separate symbols. For example, carbon has a symbol C, oxygen with O, nitrogen N, hydrogen H, sulfur S. सिंबल्स को आप निकनेम्स की तरह से समझ सकते हैं इन द मोस्ट इजीएस्ट वे इफ आई वुड एक्सप्लेन इट टू यू, जैसे कि किसी के नाम होते हैं मगर हम उनको निकनेम से बुलाते हैं, राइट? ओवर हियर आई वुड लाइक टू गिव यू द नेम एग्जांपल एज कुर्रतुल है, ऑलराइट, द मोस्ट कॉमन नेम आई थिंक कुर्रतुल एन, लेकिन हम इसको ज्यादातर शॉर्ट फॉर्म में क्या कहते हैं, एन, राइट? तो आप इसको इसकी एग्जांपल बिल्कुल ऐसे ही ले सकते हैं, that elements when symbolized becomes the shorten of it as these different symbols, right? So over here they are again showing us a definition with some characteristics written of an element, that an element is a substance that cannot be made into anything simpler by means of a chemical reaction. It means that even if you put any chemical reaction into it, you can still not identify and you can still not separate it. Why it cannot be separate? Why it cannot be broken down further? Because it is already made up of one type of an atom, and hence it can never change its uh, characteristics. It can never changes its physical or chemical properties. Okay? Now, the atoms of an element all have the same numbers of protons. There are over 100 different elements and they are arranged in a periodic table. All right. Now, if you want to analyze all the elements, for that we have our periodic table. We are going to discuss about it further, right? So, in the periodic table, we have all the different types of an elements. Now, elements are pure substances that cannot be separated into simpler substances by physical or chemical means. Pure substance is a substance with only one type of particle called atoms. All atoms of an element are identical regardless of how much you have. Over here, they are telling you that all the atoms that you put in order to make an element, all of them are of a same kind. ठीक है ना? For example, if you are about to make an element for solid, so all the atoms that you will add up there will be in solid particles. If you are talking about an element that is liquid, so all the atoms that you will add into it has to be liquid. You cannot merge the atom of solid and liquid or solid and gases in order to make separate solid or separate liquid. All right. all the atoms must be of the same group. This was all about an elements. uh, these were the definition and different characteristics of it, whereas on the other hand you can see that over here they are showing us different examples of an elements and their uses. For example, your palladium, okay, this is your element, and it is a gas, and it can be used to uh, control your pollution, right? Then silver, it is used in jewelry. Then cadmium, it is used in paints. Mercury, it is used in thermometer. ठीक है? Gold, it is again used in jewelry. Platinum, it is used in webware. So these are the different examples of your elements with their uses. Now, since we are done with elements, now let's move on to the compound. That what are compounds? Okay, over here they are showing us different examples of compound as per oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, sodium, chlorine, right? These are all different compounds, but if you can see that they have applied one formula also without writing anything, like sodium metal plus chlorine gas is equal to table salt. Now over here they are mixing two things together. Now what are these two substances? And why are they mixing? Because in elements, we were not mixing anything, right? They were the pure substances. But in compound, they are showing us some mixations. Now, the definition of compound is when two or more different elements combine, they form a compound. Okay? The smallest unit of compound is a molecule. For example, when the elements sodium and chlorine combine, they form the compound common salt. Now over here, what is the definition that we got out of compound is, in order to make a compound, we must mix two or more elements. ठीक है? दो या दो से ज्यादा elements को जब हम आपस में mix करते हैं तो वो क्या बन जाता है? वो हमारा compound बन जाता है, right? And when we were talking about elements, elements were made by atoms, whereas if we want to break the compound, we will see that there are different molecules joined together to form atoms, not sorry, to form compounds, right? We always join different molecules to form the compounds, and we join different atoms to form an element. ठीक है ना? तो ये हो गई हमारी नॉर्मल एक बेसिक सी डेफिनेशन अबाउट compound. Now over here again, um, yes, we have some differentiate between the metals versus non-metals. As you know that we have done this before. Metals and non-metals were the different types of an element. हम elements और compounds दोनों साथ पढ़ रहे हैं. तब elements की types भी होती हैं बहुत सारी, but इनकी जो main type होती है वो होती है metal या non-metal. Elements दो तरह के होते हैं. अब जो metal होते हैं उनकी क्या characteristics होती है, and what are the characteristics of non-metals, both are written over here. Like the metals are lustrous, good conductors. It has a high melting point, high density, malleable, ductile. The meaning of ductile is that it can be drawn into wires, यानी कि wires के अंदर लग सकता है, ठीक है? Usually solid at room temperature, opaque as a thin sheet, sonorous, right? Whereas non-metals are dull, they are poor conductors, they are non-ductile, brittle, maybe solid, liquid or gases at room temperature, transparent as a thin sheet, and non-sonorous. These are all the things that we have already discussed, but this is just um, a picture for your reminding. ठीक है ना? Now let me show you the last picture related to the elements and compounds, and over here you will see the differences between both these substances. Now, elements consist of only one kind of an atom, whereas compounds always have more than one kind of atom. तभी ये molecules बन जाते हैं, ठीक है ना? Now, in elements, we cannot divide element into two or more simpler substances by physical or chemical means, whereas we can divide compounds into elements by chemical means. Okay? Now, last one. There are only 118 types of elements known to mankind. There is no upper limit on the type of compounds that can be formed. So, hence, we have come to know that compounds are more than in elements. Elements से ज़्यादा compound exist करते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि element तो हमारे पास limited ही है, like 118 or 150 whatever, because इसके numbers exceed कर चुके हैं हम. But when we talk about compounds, we have infinity type of compounds, because compounds can be made or can be formed by adding elements into one another. Hence, the number of compounds are exceeds as per the numbers of elements.